when I started in this business, opinion was rare. When I first started in this business, there was no national sports talk radio. Rome was the first to make it, and then now it's exploded. Opinion now dominates cable TV. Opinion is where the money is.
Yep.
I was a local sportscaster, and I had a fine career as a local sportscaster. But when opinion became more influential, driving revenue and ratings, my career exploded. I didn't get more talented. I got more opportunities. So Andy Reid entered this league when you could grab his receivers. His receivers could be crushed over the middle of the field. You could drive his quarterbacks into the turf. They were always hurt. And then it changed. Then the league, due to safety, CTE safety regulations, has now given all the rules, not to Belichick's side, to Andy's side.
That's a great point.
Andy was always as good or better than Belichick. But his industry was built against him, and now finally there's even footing or advantage Andy, and he is separating from Belichick.
Well, listen, I do think that where I'll give Belichick credit is I do think he has a better grasp on the coaching minutiae that drives me nuts, the clock management, the challenge stuff in a way that Andy still struggles with at times. But holistically, I think it's 100% correct. And on Thursday, I had Mahomes on the TV show. And I kept, every time I talked about the Chiefs being disrespected, the Chiefs Super Bowl window, any of these things. Now, and listen, he's a brand and he knows, how to handle himself. His love for Andy Reid popped off the screen. He said when I asked him, did it seem like the national media was ready to turn the page from the Chiefs and love the Bills or the Bengals or the Chargers prematurely? What he said was, I think as long as we have Andy Reid, we should be the favorites. Like that. And so that relationship there, Andy's, by the way, not a young man anymore. And no one, our mutual friend Danny Parkins made this point. I think it was smart. He said no one is discussing, is Andy Reid retiring if they win this Super Bowl? He's obviously dealt with personal tragedy. He's done it. He's a Hall of Famer, all these things. And what Danny's point and it's because everyone's like, why would he retire? He has Patrick Mahomes. They're going to continue to dominate. He can climb. He's 3 wins away, Colin, from being 4th all-time in regular season wins. He's already now 2nd all-time in playoff wins. He's going to have a claim as the 2nd greatest coach of this era of football. I think he already has that claim. And I think your point is, what if the Chiefs win 3 of the next 5? And then he walks out the door. Can you make the case he's the best? It's going to be interesting. It's at least going to be on the board. If he ends with 4 and Belichick has 6, but especially if the Patriots never pop back up. Because I know what people can say, well, Andy had Mahomes. Yes, but Andy made 5 conference championship games in Philadelphia without a Hall of Fame quarterback. With a good quarterback.
Without an accurate quarterback.
Correct, yeah. McNabb was not a bad quarterback, but he was not a Hall of Fame level player. And he made 5 NFC championship games there. Might have been 6. I think it's 5.
Yeah. But it is interesting is that sometimes cultures change and opportunities present themselves, and that people don't suddenly just get talented at 50. Let's be honest. You flourish in the opinion space.
Correct.
You probably wouldn't be as effective as a local sports anchor
I got cut from the Syracuse college radio station trying to do play-by-play because I couldn't. At WAER, before you can even try to do play-by-play, you have to do a 90-second sports update. like, what they used to do on local radio stations?
Yeah.
Colin, I came in twice a week, 90 minutes each time for 3 semesters, a year and a half, trying to get cleared to do 90-second sports updates at a college radio station. And then, God love him, the guy who's now the voice of the Las Vegas Raiders, Jason Horowitz, had to call me and was like, buddy, you're a second semester sophomore and you're not even to the first step. You gotta go. You're not. I got cut from my college radio station because.
Were you crushed?
Oh, it's the whole reason I went there. It's the whole reason I went there. But I was fortunate in that I was already working on the talk show staff. And I then just and I was kind of realizing, like, man, I thought I wanted to do, growing up, I thought I wanted to do play-by-play. But what I wanted to do was color commentary. I would watch the NBA on NBC with Costas and Walton and Steve Snapper Jones. And what I wanted to do was the color. But I didn't realize you can't do that unless you're a former player or a former coach. They're not hiring me to do color commentary. But then, they did hire Dennis Miller briefly. Like, they hired Kornheiser. So I was like, oh, maybe at some point. So no, I was crushed. But it made me fully pivot to talk show. And, little humble brag here. Now at WAR, the talk show studio is named after me and my picture's on the wall. I'm a Hall of Famer there. That's a true story. Marv Albert, Bob Costas, Nick Wright are the 3 studios there. That's true. But the point is, I'm not a great broadcaster. I have a traditional broadcaster. You know what I mean? I can't read off a teleprompter. I'm not good at, I have a nasal, but there is a specific thing I can do, which is confidently argue, no matter whether it's, one-on-one with my wife or in front of a million people.
Well, also, you're entertaining. In my preamble, I talked about this. Charles Barkley doesn't watch the league he broadcasts. He literally doesn't know 90% of the players. He's entertaining.
He's wildly
Nobody cares. The audience, they don't care. Nobody
cares. It's the entertainment business that we're in, and you get extra credit for being right and smart and all these things. But what a lot of, I think, broadcasters don't understand is this. The perfect storm is entertaining, smart, funny, correct analysis, right? That's like, if you could check every box, that would be it.
Yeah.
You can get away with, you can even thrive if with your picks always being wrong, with your analysis always being off, as long as you're entertaining and captivating. If you could be right on every prediction, know the name of every player, and there's a few broadcasters, you and I both know, we don't have to name names, that are like this, that are buttoned up on everything.
And they're boring.
If you're boring and don't captivate the audience, you're drawn dead. You're just flatly drawn dead.
Years ago.
Go ahead.
Years ago, there was a guy named Pete Genesini at ESPN. Really nice guy. Yeah. Really nice guy. And when I got to ESPN, they weren't doing radio very well. And they brought in a guy named Bruce Gilbert to kind of fix Mike and Mike. There was a big vote whether to keep him or not when I first got there. And it was like 9 people voted, 5-4, keep him. So Bruce Gilbert came in to fix them and hire somebody to replace Kornheiser, and that was the guy. And Pete's a really good guy and real smart guy. But we had a discussion one time. And he said, the number one thing at ESPN is to be informative. And I said, Pete, it's number 2. I said, I've watched you either demote or get rid of really informative people. This company has never gotten rid of somebody that's funny on the air and entertaining. Ever. They may leave you. You don't get rid of them. I've watched you not promote people who are informative. I said, radio, TV, is the entertainment business. Remember when Barbara Walters was a journalist and she was doing 2020 and she was doing sit-down cushy interviews with Johnny Carson and Steven Spielberg? Sure. That was the entertainment division. It was the highest rated thing she did. That's why Barbara Walters made a fortune, not because of her journalism, because she would do these sit-down interviews that got massive ratings, and that was part of the entertainment budget. And so when I had this discussion with Pete, who, again, this is not a criticism, and I just said, Pete, I'm watching what the company does. You promote really entertaining people. Well, the messaging is be entertaining.
Well, listen, and for me, that was, listen, that took me a long time to grasp on television, because I'd figured out radio. I'd figured out how to do like the radio show exactly the way I needed to. And then when I got on TV, I think the first year maybe, I thought the job was to always have all the answers, to have you know what I mean? To have the facts exactly right, to have, to never be wrong. You know what I mean? To always, and what I've now done the show 5.5 years. By a country mile, the most successful version of the show I've ever done is the one I'm doing right now, this moment, with Wilds and Broussard.
It's the funniest.
It's the funniest. And that's why. Now, it's not like I have forgotten that info. I still have the info available to me, but I am not out there. I used to approach the TV show with the perspective of, I have to prove how smart I am to the audience every single day. And now I approach it as, our entire goal is to put on a show that people smile while they're watching. You know what I mean? That people smile while they're watching and have a good time, and that has enough meat to it to where it's not all empty calories. There's got to be the information. There's got to be the analysis, but there's also got to be a lot of bells and whistles and funny stuff and, you know what I mean, guys messing with each other. And that's what works. And you know what I mean? That took me a while to figure out, because people, when I first started, they would say to me, the best version of you is when you're on with Colin. They're like, can you try to be more of that on First Things First? And I think part of it, I was like, well, I get up for First Things First at 3:30 in the morning. So I don't know. I'm not certain. But the other thing was, especially early in our relationship, and I still do it, but especially early in our relationship, I was really, really trying to impress you. And I wanted to make you laugh. Like every time I came on, I was like, it's successful if I make Colin laugh. And I didn't. I was too stupid to fucking realize I should just be trying to make the audience laugh too. And I don't have to get out there and like to tell jokes. But the same, and so but that was the best version of me at the time, was because I wasn't trying. I felt like you knew I was smart. So I wasn't trying to prove it to you. So you know what I mean? So I could just kind of be the best version of myself. And that's what works. That's what works in this business. You go across the networks. I'll give credit to the other network, even though this show happens to be up against mine at one point. A show that I think really works on the other network is NFL Live, because those people like each other and they're fun together and they bust each other's chops and they have real info. You know what I mean? Like that show, whenever I can't watch it because it's on at the same time, but the clips, I'm like, oh, they're fun, they're funny, that works. That always will work. People that get along, that are smart, that know what they're talking about will always work.
Well, yeah, and I don't watch that show, but I know the people on it, and they're likable, and they're fun, and
hold on, sorry to interrupt. This mug is from WAR, the radio station that cut me. That's so fun. They sent it to me.
Today, hey, listen, you're fired. Here's a mug.
Yeah, that's right.
So people think from time to time I don't like certain people. I don't like Russell Westbrook's half-court game. He's probably a wonderful guy. It drives me crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't like the neediness of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a smart guy and a wonderful quarterback. But I do think about it that if I ran into Aaron or Russell, they wouldn't like me, and I totally get that. Andy Dalton once ran into me, and I called him the beige water pistol for a decade. And he was really, really sweet. But Rodgers is a fascinating person because he really does project a lot. He had another one this week.
Yeah.
When he said,
go ahead.
Apparently they're doing discussions. I'm not involved, which is interesting. And I thought, it's interesting. Aaron, you're so smart, but you lack a basic self-awareness that you are projecting constantly, passive-aggressively. And it's why, I've said this about Aaron. We give too much credit to talent. What really separates Mahomes is his self-awareness. He's so effing good at the podium. He is such a good teammate. He almost never, ever compliments himself. He goes, the talent thing, I think that Mahomes is gifted. But I think when I talked to Sean Payton, I went to dinner with him, spent 4 hours with him. Sean Payton told me that they flew in to Lubbock or whatever godforsaken town he played college football in.
Yeah, they wanted to draft him. But go ahead.
After the workout, they brought in information they thought would overwhelm him and would take 3 days. Within 2 hours, he had digested it and was vomiting it out to them. He said, it's the smartest player I'd ever interviewed. We got on a plane. We told nobody we were there. And Sean said, it was the greatest quarterback I'd ever worked out or gone to a whiteboard. And that where Mahomes is underrated, his ability to consume information, see things, and let go of the ball instinctively is the greatest I've ever seen. I think Josh Allen has a stronger arm. I think Lamar is faster. I think Kyler Murray is almost more elusive. I think above the shoulders, Mahomes is almost a performance artist. He's Prince. So the world looks different.
His dad was on, I'll mention in a second Danny Parkins shout out, but his dad was on Danny's radio show a couple days ago and said the reason Mahomes counted on his fingers when he scored a touchdown against the Bears was because the Bears told him, we're drafting you at 3. And then they traded up for Trubisky and Mahomes was crushed because he really wanted to go to Chicago. But in that same interview, and I'd never heard anyone say this, he said that Patrick has an eidetic memory, which I just Googled what that meant, which is basically
eidetic imagery.
Yes, and that you can see something once and then always be able to pull it back, which I'd never heard someone say that about him. And maybe that's a dad, embellishing about his kid. I don't know. But if that's true or something close to it, and what, you're saying Sean Payton told you, it does. Now all of a sudden you have let me give you for instance, LeBron has the highest basketball IQ I've ever seen, plus kind of the perfect body for basketball. It's like, hey, I want to play 20 years in the NBA. It's like, okay, you're going to have to be big enough to withstand injuries. You know what I mean? Tall enough to play. It's like, okay. So it went check on like a brain thing and a body thing that leads you to this, right? Mahomes has the physical gifts of like the crazy arm angle stuff and the arm strength from playing baseball. So that's like the physical stuff check. The memory thing that now we've had Sean Payton talk about, his dad talk about, it feels like we have contemporary evidence from seeing how he plays.
Yep.
Like, oh, there might have been like 2 genetic lottery things where it's like the in a same way that Michael Phelps like has the webbed fingers and toes. It's like, oh, so it's like, it's not just that you worked so hard and all these things. You also happen to be kind of blessed specifically for this type of greatness.
Yes.
And so because there is an element with Patrick, and I think you want to talk Rodgers. We can talk Rodgers too. But with Patrick he can, with the exception of like a 3-week stretch during last season, he can instantly figure out what the defense is doing and within a half adjust if need be. in a way that I've seen very few quarterbacks ever consistently be able to do. And the only one that I've seen be able to do it at this level is Manning. And Manning's problem is, listen, he's one of the 3 best quarterbacks ever. But for Peyton, what I think hurt him a bit was he had that ability and almost couldn't turn it off to where if guys weren't where they were supposed to be or guys he didn't have the improvisational abilities that Patrick has, which are as good as anyone I've ever seen. As good as anyone I've ever seen. What do you think's going to happen with Aaron?
I think Green Bay ideally wants to send him to the Raiders because with Peyton and Russ, Herbert and Kellen Moore, and Andy and Mahomes, he'll finish in 4th place. And so if Jordan Love is bumpy initially, which Aaron was in his first year, that, Minnesota's not going 11-0 in one-score games. Chicago's still awful, and Detroit's still Detroit, although they're better. That I don't think they know quite yet what Jordan is, but if they can get another first-round pick, address their tight end situation, edge rusher, and get supplemental picks, right? Yeah. That if the Jordan Love situation's a little bumpy, Aaron's not crushing.
Lighting the world on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think they want to move off, and I think this is why the Raiders right now are holding on to Derek Carr. That the Raiders may be saying the Raiders don't want to give up as much. I think Green Bay has leaked already publicly. All this stuff gets out, Nick, because somebody wants it out. Yep. They've already leaked AFC.
Yep.
Aaron even said it. Well, they're talking about me. So Green Bay wants it out to the league, not Aaron. We are ready to move off him. Their takeaway is we don't exactly know what Jordan Love is, but what we don't want is Favre to the Vikings good, at least for a year.
Correct. And listen, the Jets obviously want him. They hired Hackett. But I think Jets Raiders are obviously the leading contenders. Here's my question. Let's say Rodgers does go to the AFC. Honest question here, and then I'll give you the possibilities. Does that make Dak Prescott the 2nd best quarterback in the NFC? Like, is Jalen 1? And Jalen, by the way, I still think has some real question marks, but I give him credit for what he's done.
Stafford.
The problem for Stafford, though, is he's got an elbow and a spine injury, and he's older. And even the year he won the Super Bowl, he led the league in picks and pick sixes. And even if he is good, I think that team's not going to be good. I was thinking about it. I was like, Kyler has a torn ACL, is a pain in the ass, and nobody seems to like him. Justin Fields is a great runner. We've seen nothing. I was just going down the list of NFC quarterbacks because Jerry came out and was like, we want Dak for the next 10 years. And I'm like, man, in the AFC, if Dak were your quarterback, you'd say we have to upgrade. In the NFC, you say he might be the best quarterback left in the conference in a few months. It's crazy. It's crazy. The level of discrepancy between quarterback talent in the 2 conferences. Trevor Lawrence, I think, would be clearly the best quarterback in the NFC. And I don't know if he is top 5 in the AFC right now.
Well, Mahomes would be. Allen would be.
Burrow
would be.
Lawrence,
Herbert, Trevor Lawrence.
Lamar, maybe. Deshaun, to see if he ever gets it back. We're at 7.
Listen,
it's
Tannehill.
Crazy.
Tannehill goes to Carolina tomorrow. He's no worse than 3rd.
I know.
In
That's
the
what's
NFC.
Insane. I don't know if Tua's going to play again. I don't think he's that great. He would be in the discussion over there. It is bananas. It's such a discrepancy. I feel like the NFL, has to behind the scenes be talking about what do we do here? Because we can't. We need to find a way to get. Now, I think they're probably thrilled Chicago got the number 1 pick. But the problem is Chicago's not going to take a quarterback. Are they calling the Bears like you have to trade that pick to an NFC team? Like you can't have it. It's
networks in the last several years. Remember when, because the AFC's always had the smaller markets.
Yeah.
Except Boston. The NFC's always had the bigger markets. St. Louis became Los Angeles, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta. Whereas the AFC's got a lot of Cincinnati's,
Kansas City,
Nashville's.
Yeah.
Right. And so for several years ago, Fox started losing occasional games to CBS, and the league said, we're going to even it out.
Yep.
Now, they're still doing that, but Fox will probably get an increased number of AFC games.
Because you need it's a quarterback league. And they didn't mean for it to happen this way. But,
right.
I know this much. They need Caleb Williams to the NFC. They need that.
Well, yeah. Listen, for years and years, you know how I love theories and figuring stuff out, the jigsaw puzzle of sports. For 20 years, I couldn't figure it out. Why the F is the Western Conference always better than the Eastern Conference? And I had weather theories. The West has better weather. Players don't like these Eastern turbulent flights, cold weather, off a plane, because Miami gets good players. So I thought, well, maybe it's a weather thing. And then Mark Cuban said something to me one time, and he said the West has way better general managers outside of Miami. That's why Miami engineers better trades. They've got a great general manager. And by the way, and then Boston got good with Danny Ainge, who now moves west. And that sometimes it's just, so the truth is the AFC has had better GMs make better picks on quarterbacks. By the way, Howie Roseman, great GM, found Jalen Hurts in the second round.
For sure.
Les Snead went and engineered a deal to get Matt Stafford. The AFC is hit on more of the quarterback picks, better GMing.
And I also think that you had Brady obviously went to the NFC. Rodgers was there. Breeze was there. And it was kind of being propped up by the last 3 years by these much older quarterbacks, 2 of which have now retired and 1 might be leaving the conference. And it puts him in a really rough spot. A really rough spot. Like, you know who they really would like to be a star is Trey Lance. You know what I mean? Like, God, because they spent that draft pick on him. Like, it's a tough spot, man.
If Mac Jones is a Niner quarterback, they beat Philadelphia potentially.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because he's just a distributor. The knock on Trey is he's not accurate. That's why Shanahan liked Kirk Cousins. Like Matt Ryan,
buddy,
preferred Mac Jones.
It was almost your worst nightmare because if he wasn't a Ram, he might have ended up being a Niner. Baker Mayfield. Could you imagine if that was Baker Mayfield coming to the rescue in that game instead of Josh Johnson cutting up the Philadelphia Eagles going to the Super Bowl? It would have been legendary.
I'm going to throw something at you. When Quentin Tarantino came on the scene, it's all anybody talked about for 2 years. Spielberg has done far more, far longer. But it wasn't new and shiny and fun. That we're not dissing LeBron or Brady or Spielberg. But we like the new stuff. We like the new restaurant, the new nightclub, the new Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, Josh Allen, who you've accurately said, we like him more than his game produces. And that I think LeBron was great early, great middle, great late. He's never had the story arcs going to baseball like MJ. Couldn't win without Pippen, then had Pippen, and then he left for baseball, and then he came back, and then he lost to Orlando. Michael's career had so many different chapters. LeBron, Spielberg, Brady. Great early, great middle, great late. What's there to say?
Well, I think there's that. I also think that so I don't know if you saw this, but when people hear or see this, it'll be, I think, on February 3rd is when this will come out. Your former employer is doing across all shows tomorrow, because tomorrow is 2/3/23, Michael Jordan tributes. And if I understand the timing on the calendar, but you also can't convince me that's not some editorial decisions by folks who are heavily invested in Michael Jordan remaining the gold standard for everything, that we are going to be potentially a day away from LeBron breaking Kareem's record, and we're going to have wall-to-wall Michael Jordan coverage. I mean, give me a goddamn break. And so there is, I think there has been so much of our sports logic forever has been, I shouldn't say forever, for the last 30 years, has not been based on what is objectively the best, but has been based on what is objectively the most similar to Michael Jordan's arc, that we've perverted so many arguments. Like Tim Duncan was a more successful, more impactful, more winning, more everything than Kobe Bryant. But when you say Tim Duncan was better than Kobe, it breaks some people's brains because they're not judging who's better. They're judging who reminds you more of Michael Jordan. I'm old enough to remember, as are you, that when Tom Brady, before he got to 7 rings, after the Seattle Super Bowl, when he had 4 rings and then 2 Super Bowl losses, there were people that argued Joe Montana's 4 rings were better than Brady's 4 rings because Montana never lost a Super Bowl, which is objectively idiotic because it just means he didn't get there. But the reason that was the case was because we had already decided that Jordan's 6-0 was better than Kareem's 6-4, which never made any sense. Objectively speaking, that same logic would dictate, by the way, that Patrick Mahomes actually, if he loses in a week, that logic dictates, it was bad for him to have this legendary performance on one leg and beat the Bengals. Would have been better to just lose that game because losses pre-championship round don't hurt you, but losses in the championship round do. So much of it is about protecting the narrative. And I think the LeBron, if we wanted to tell the LeBron story the same way people want to tell the Michael Jordan story, the story of overcoming incompetent coaching at various steps, overcoming incompetent teammates, of having no true basketball training. He's come straight out of high school as opposed to having Dean Smith. Instead of coming from a great 2-parent household, he had one parent incredibly poor, and that one parent dealt with their own issues. All of that could be part of the legend. But since the guy's been 27, a huge part of the story surrounding him has been discrediting what he's accomplished because people want to protect Jordan. I truly believe that. And I think
can I throw this in? Can I throw this in? This is engineered by Michael, who remains a grudge holder and incredibly petty. And the reason he okayed use of certain footage to ESPN, because after LeBron beat the Warriors, there were real discussions that LeBron's better than MJ.
He okayed it the next day.
Suddenly.
He okayed it the day after the parade.
Yep. And now, as LeBron gets ready to set the record, this is not coincidental. Michael is petty. He's a grudge holder. He still holds a grudge to Isaiah Thomas. Who the F cares anymore about that?
Charles Barkley, who used to be his best friend. And it is just, I don't think, but the other part of it, forget the Michael part of it, the other part of it is on the media writ large for just deciding what we are and are not going to treat with importance. I made this point on the TV show, but I didn't make it to you. I think you'll agree with me. There was far more day-by-day breathless coverage of Steph Curry breaking the 3-point record last year than there has been about LeBron breaking the all-time points record. Last night, or Wednesday night, LeBron passed 4 and 5 in the all-time assist rankings. Nobody cares. So he's going to be top 4 in assists the day he becomes number 1 in points. And it feels like it has been a sub-story. Go ahead.
No, Nick, one of the things I've noticed by the media, I never blame fans, it's short for fanatic, for having favorites. That's why they're great. But one of the things I've noticed, I remember Jerry Seinfeld was asked, it was like 2 years ago, and he was asked about the media and the COVID coverage and people and their opinions. And, I remember reading somewhere Jerry Seinfeld said, well, maybe the media should do a better job. And I do believe the media can be condescending. They have agendas. I see it in the coverage about our careers where it's so I only can judge based on information I have and stuff that's written about our careers, radio, TV. What's it like for politicians? What's it like for star athletes? So I don't think, and what's funny is Jordan basically refused to talk to Sports Illustrated because of a cover.
Correct.
Jordan won't talk to Isaiah Thomas or Charles Barkley. He's petty. LeBron James may call out certain people, but LeBron has been the most available NBA star outside of maybe Magic of my life. He is every night, local broadcasts, regional, every night.
And he doesn't do the big sit-down interviews anymore, except for, maybe once a year, unless it's with his own company. He has his own production company, so he does with him, which makes sense. But I mean, talking all the time, and it's just, it is incredibly frustrating to me. And the other thing that is also frustrating to me is that none of us, myself included, none of us thought it was possible for him to be in year 20 playing like this. Year 19 and 20, he's averaging 30 points, 36 minutes per game, better than 50% shooting. None of us thought it was possible. And yet, almost nobody has stopped to appreciate it. We didn't think it was possible, and then we instantly started taking it for granted. And they're like, oh, they're not winning enough. Which is true, except for the fact that this is an unbelievable stat. When LeBron's on the court, Colin, the Lakers have a better net rating than Milwaukee. When he's off the court, they have a worse net rating than the Hornets. So with the teammates around him, when he plays, they are A1 contenders. When he goes to the bench, they're a bottom 3 team. And I mean, that's an indictment on the general managing and on the roster construction, but it's not an indictment on LeBron.
Yeah. The other night I went to dinner with my daughter, and I was at the bar at Craig's in West Hollywood.
Oh, that's where you and I went, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't that where you and I went?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And so the Nets Celtics first quarter was on, and it was about 10 feet away from me, and the sound was down, and I was watching it, and it was like, 46-19 or something.
Yep.
And, I didn't hear what was happening. But it is really interesting that, and I made this point today on FS1, Stafford left to the Rams because they had a better coach and a better roster. It was about winning. Peyton went to the Broncos. Go back and look at that roster. It was about winning. Tom left New England because he saw the league pivoting to offense. They literally in New England could not draft or develop a singular wide receiver. As last year in Foxborough, the cameras caught him one game screaming at receivers, somebody get open, separate. Yep. So Tom actually went to dysfunctional Tampa to win more. He had control of the offense and offensive coach and weapons. Russell Wilson went to Denver for the right reasons. It just didn't work out. They had better players. But let me criticize the NBA for this. Kevin Durant left winning to go play with a friend. LeBron left 4 straight finals for business. Kyrie left winning to be the man. And Melo left winning in Denver, which he did a lot of, for a city. And that one of the reasons I think fans really like the NFL is because the players feel like all they care about is winning, not being the man, not playing with friends. If Mahomes left the Chiefs to the Jets to play with a friend, he would be laughed out of the league. It would be insane because your chances of winning is that when players talk about, KD, you're a casual. I'm like, dude, sometimes you guys treat winning casually.
Well, can I push back on that a bit?
Sure, please.
Okay. So Durant, though, also left Oklahoma City purely for winning and got crushed for it. You didn't. I'll give you credit. You didn't, but in the bigger picture, got crushed for it. LeBron left Cleveland to go to Miami. Yes, with friends. Yes, weather. Yes, all that. But also to win. Went back to Cleveland and won. And yes, going to Los Angeles, there were a lot of side benefits to it, but he believed he could win there, and he did. So, you know what I mean? It's not like LeBron's gone anywhere and not been. I think the distinction I would draw is this. I think the true NBA superstars either, sometimes correctly and sometimes incorrectly believe where I go, we will win. So I might as well go to a city I want to be in. I might as well play with my friend because I am going to be the reason that winning happens.
Yeah.
So I should be able to do it, wherever I want to do it. I also think that I think the NBA has a few significant kind of structural issues that I don't have the immediate fix to. But one of them, if you do want kind of a more spread out stars, and you do want the stars to have less leverage, actually, I do think that one of the problems they have is the capped individual max contracts puts a lot, like teams can't offer more. They're actually not being, I talked to a GM once and I was like, why do you think these teams, kind of kowtow to the certain players sometimes? And he goes, for the true superstars, they're all underpaid. And so you have to pay them in extra stuff, either influence or how you treat them or all these things.
Yeah.
He goes, if a guy's worth $70 million, if you're paying him $70 million, oddly enough, his argument was you actually have more control because it's like, hey, we paid you your actual market value. We expect to get X, Y, and Z. But when a guy's worth $70 million and you're capped out at paying him 35, and then he's like, I don't want to play him back-to-backs, and I want my buddies to be able to ride on the team flight, these things. It's like, well, damn it. We can only offer you what everyone can offer you. So whoever says yes to it is then going to get, you know what I mean, is going to sometimes get the free agency decision. So I actually think, sorry about that, I actually think oddly that individual player cap has caused a lot of these issues because everyone's offering the same amount, and it also makes it to where you can't just say, hold on, I want to offer Giannis $80 million and see if he can turn it down. And if you do that, then there wouldn't be super teams. So I think that's one of the issues, but I don't think that's changing at any point.
All right, buddy. That's 45 minutes. That's more than we could have ever asked for. Nick Wright, co-host First Things First. Also, he has his podcast, What's Right with Nick Wright. You, Broussard, and Kevin Wildes are so infinitely likable, and the chemistry. So Jason McIntyre, who's now on my show, I feel very lucky. I've had Joy and McIntyre back-to-back. Both make me laugh.
Sure, yeah.
And
both
McIntyre, we had our highest rated month in
I saw
January.
That. Congratulations.
Ever. Yeah, thanks. And it, which is kind of cool because FS1 and every other cable network's lost 30% of their subs over the last 6 years. So it doesn't make any sense. And, Jason asked me about 2 weeks ago, he says, like, what do you think? We're doing really well. Why? And I said, because we like each other and because people just want to hang out. They're not sitting there with a notepad. Oh, he made a mistake. Yeah. People want to feel like your people they'd hang out with. And when I watch your guys' show, it looks like if you gave each of you a cocktail and a bar stool, it's literally shit talking among friends, and it's terrific.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. We obviously are very fortunate to have you as, couldn't ask for a better lead-in. It's been great.
I am a hell of a lead-in.
It's a hell of a lead-in. And so that's been wonderful. And by the way, I don't have access to the data, but in your highest rated month, I would imagine your highest rated segments were Tuesdays around 1 p.m. Eastern when I come on with you. Just power-packed 15 minutes. But the show's been a ton of fun. And the podcast I do with my son,
yes,
as of a couple days ago, hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We've been doing it less than a year. So that's pretty dope as well. And I appreciate that. And I can't wait when I fly in on Wednesday to Arizona. So as soon as I land, I'm going to come see you because you got a little shindig going. So I'm going to try to make it before it closes up shop.
Yep, the Volume Party in downtown Phoenix. As always, buddy, it's great seeing you.
You too. Talk to you later, Colin.